The name of this poem is A Considerable Speck by Robert Frost. It's a satirical poem written in couplet form.
So, as you talk about the considerable spec, what is the significance of its title?
Breaking down a considerable speck, you see kind of a word with a positive connotation and a word with a negative connotation. Considerable, you think of something grand, something important, noticeable, and speck is something kind of contradicting that. You're saying something small, something, kind of like a stain, just there, a little mite, bug, whatever. So you're saying, basically with that, you're looking at it and you're saying it's something small physically, but it is something big in what it is.
Okay. So I see you talking about the use of diction throughout the title. So what does the use of diction throughout the poem help and reinforce the poet's main idea?
Well, Frost definitely takes the diction all the way throughout the poem. He uses different variations of the word speck. He uses speck, and then he says dust speck again. Later on in the poem, we discover that the quote-unquote speck is actually a bug. So he starts calling it mite, and he calls it a bug, and a bunch of negatively connotated words. And the way that these are connected is he's comparing this bug, this mite, to the people in the society. Literally what's happening is he's sitting, writing on a piece of paper, and he sees a little speck, and he thought it was just like a little piece of dust, but it's actually a little bug, and he sees it running around in between the words and stuff. And it's just going back and forth, and he's kind of amused by it because he sees a correlation with it to the world around him. This bug keeps going back and forth trying to find an escape, and it just does that. All it is looking for is a way to stay alive. So, the thing's never done anything to him. He's just going to leave it and let it be. The deeper meaning connected to that is, at this time, he was seeing that even in the free world, it was becoming collectivistic society. So it was based on socialism and communism, a whole lot of equality. He's making the comment that people are no longer allowed to think for themselves. They're not taught to have their own thoughts and their own creativity, and they're just kind of told what they need to think. So he's comparing that to this little bug who is simply just trying to stay alive. He doesn't have, any kind of creativity within him.
Okay. So throughout the poem, what would you consider to be the most prominent literary device that the author uses there?
I'd have to say the extended metaphor between the two. He has a few others, just couple alliterations and stuff like that, but definitely the most important one's going to be the extended metaphor, comparing this small thing to this really big matter to him.
Okay. So basically, after you've analyzed the entire poem, what would you consider to be the most important lines of the entire poem?
Definitely the most important are going to be the last two lines where he says, "No one can know how glad I am to find on any sheet the least display of mind." It's really ironic what he's saying. The word glad in itself is kind of ironic because he's not really glad by it. It's just, I'm glad, an ironic term. And then on any sheet, something that you would expect to be so plain, he would just, like to see something there, because as a creative person himself, he would be able to recognize it, but he can't be glad by that because it doesn't exist in his world.
Okay. What would you consider to be the author's general idea or general purpose for the poem?
Like I said, he's concerned with the people around him, how they don't have their own thoughts, and he just would like to see more creativity in the world. Not everything is equal, He wants people to be able to think for themselves and just be able to make their own works and have their own thoughts.